I want you to picture something with me. It's Sunday.
Okay.
It's about 2 in the afternoon. You are sitting on the couch or maybe at the kitchen table, and the house is completely quiet.
That sounds pretty ideal so far.
Right. You are eating a piece of dry toast. You've got a documentary about bees on the TV, but you aren't really watching it.
Just staring off into space.
Exactly. You're staring at those little specks of dust just floating in a sunbeam.
I mean, that sounds like the universal image of a completely wasted afternoon.
It really does, doesn't it? It sounds like laziness. It sounds like you've just given up for the day. But what if I told you that this specific scene, the toast, the bees, the dust, isn't about being lazy at all?
Okay.
What if I told you that this moment is actually a radical biological declaration?
That is a massive claim to make over a piece of dry toast.
It is a massive claim, but that is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We are looking at a track called Magic in the Mundane by the artist Pi-Fi, and specifically we're digging into her writer's room breakdown of the song.
And let me tell you, having read through that breakdown, this is not just a song about relaxing on the weekend.
Yeah, not even close.
When you really dig into the source material here, this is a roadmap for the nervous system. You know, we spend so much time in our culture talking about the trenches, the trauma, the burnout, the hustle, the anxiety. We have a million words for the struggle.
You really do.
But we rarely talk about what happens after the war is actually over.
And that's the exact thing that grabbed me. We know what the fight feels like, but what does peace actually feel like? Is it this, explosion of joy? Is it some big cinematic moment? Or is it something totally different?
That is the core question. What does it look like, biologically and emotionally, when the alarm bells finally stop ringing?
So our mission today is to explore this track, to understand why doing nothing might be the hardest work you ever do, why your brain might actually be terrified of a quiet Sunday, and why being boring is the ultimate prize.
I think for anyone listening who feels guilty the literal second they sit down, this is going to be a very necessary deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. Let's jump right into that opening scene I described. Because the lyrics start with a confession that I think most of us would be a little ashamed to admit out loud. She sings, "I haven't done a single productive thing." And then she lists it out. The bees, the toast, the dust motes.
It's just a laundry list of non-activities.
Right.
But Pi-Fi points out something really counterintuitive in her analysis. She calls this opening line a radical declaration of safety.
See, that stopped me, because usually when I think of safety, I think of external things.
Like what?
Like a lock on the door, or having money in the savings account, maybe a good alarm system. But she's talking about something else entirely here.
She is talking about safety as a biological state. Think about it this way. If you are living in a state of hyperarousal.
Like fight or flight mode.
Exactly. If your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight, stillness is not relaxing. Stillness is actually a threat.
Why is that, though? Wouldn't stillness be a relief if you're exhausted?
Not if your brain thinks there's a predator nearby. If you are in the wild and you suddenly freeze, it's because you are hiding or you're preparing to run. Pi-Fi argues that for many people, productivity is actually a trauma response.
Productivity as a trauma response, that is heavy.
It's a way to outrun the feeling. If you are always moving, always fixing things, always anticipating the next disaster, you never actually have to sit with the pain. You are just running on adrenaline.
Wow.
So for her to say, "I haven't done a single productive thing," she isn't saying, "I'm lazy." She is announcing that her internal alarm system has finally been disarmed.
So the fact that she can just stare at dust motes means she isn't actively scanning the room for exits.
Spot on. And that image of the dust motes, that's not accidental poetry. That is a textbook grounding technique.
We hear that word a lot in wellness circles, grounding. But what is actually happening in the brain there?
The source material compares it to RAM, like computer memory.
Oh, I love this metaphor. Let me jump in here because this part of the breakdown was fascinating.
Go for it.
So if you think of your brain like a computer, if you have chronic anxiety or PTSD, your brain is constantly running these massive background apps like Regret from 2016.exe or Catastrophe Scenario Generator 2025.
Yes, exactly.
And those apps take up a huge amount of processing power. So grounding is the act of forcing your CPU to focus entirely on physical reality right now.
You are flooding the system with sensory data from the present moment. I see the light. I see the dust moving.
Right, so by staring at the dust, you're forcing the computer to switch tasks.
If you are truly tracking that dust mote, you literally do not have the processing power left to time travel back to your trauma or forward to your fears. You are just there.
Which sounds incredibly simple, but I guess for a lot of us, staying in the now is excruciating.
It's incredibly difficult because the now is where we actually live, and sometimes we have spent a lifetime trying to avoid it.
Yeah. The song moves from this visual of the dust to what she feels inside her body, and this is where the material gets really physiological. The lyrics say, "My heart rate is slow, my hands will steady."
This is a crucial distinction she makes. Recovery isn't just a mindset shift. It is a biological rewiring. We tend to think of anxiety as worrying thoughts. But she notes that until you've lived with chronic anxiety or PTSD, you don't realize how intensely physical it is.
It's not just in your head.
It is rarely just in the head. It's the shaking hands. It's the jaw that is clenched so tight your teeth actually hurt. It's the heart racing when you're just sitting on the sofa watching TV. Ti-Fi mentions this moment of looking down at her own hands and realizing, with total shock, that they weren't trembling.
It's like she didn't even realize she was vibrating until she stopped.
Precisely. And that leads to the line that I think is the most challenging part of the song for high performers. She sings, "Nothing is happening, absolutely nothing."
I have to be honest here. When I hear nothing is happening, my immediate reaction is not a celebratory yay, it's panic.
Why do you think that is?
Because if nothing is happening, I feel like I'm missing something important. Or I feel like I'm wasting valuable time. Or worse, I feel like it's the calm before the storm.
And that, right there, is the paradox of recovery. To a hypervigilant brain, a brain that has been heavily trained to look for danger, nothing happening is terrifying.
It feels like a trap.
It's a void. And the brain fills that void with paranoia. Why is it quiet? Where's the threat hiding?
You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Always. She follows that line up with no anticipation of the hurt. That is the definition of healing. Trauma trains you to brace for impact constantly.
Right.
You walk into a room, you check the vibes, you get a text message that's slightly vague, you prepare for a fight. You are physically bracing your muscles.
So this Sunday afternoon moment isn't really about eating toast at all. It's the moment she realizes her muscles have actually stopped clenching.
She has stopped preparing for a blow that isn't coming. She's just existing. And that transition from bracing to existing leads us to a really interesting comparison in the song regarding the emotional tide.
She talks about going from the tsunami of constant fear to the gentle ripple of the now and here. Now, obviously, a gentle ripple sounds much better than a tsunami. But, and maybe this is just me, ripples are kind of boring.
And that is the danger zone. That is exactly where so many people relapse into chaos.
Because we miss the tsunami.
Because we are addicted to the tsunami. There is a lyric that really nails this. She says, "I used to think drama was the only proof that I was alive, but now I know that the quiet is the prize."
Drama was the only proof I was alive. That is such a profound statement.
It's a chemical reality. Ti-Fi explains in the breakdown that the nervous system gets addicted to its own stress hormones, the cortisol, the adrenaline, the dopamine. High-stakes situations give you a massive chemical hit. It makes you feel focused, alive, and important.
So when the drama finally stops,
You go into literal withdrawal. Peace doesn't feel peaceful. It feels dead. It feels flat. If you have spent 10 years fighting raging fires, sitting quietly in a garden feels like you have ceased to exist.
you start a fight just to feel something.
Or you procrastinate until it becomes an emergency. Or you overbook yourself. You manufacture the chaos because that high arousal state feels like home. Ti-Fi is admitting that she didn't know how to exist without a fire to put out.
But the song is about breaking that cycle. She actively tries to reframe that flatness. She sings, "Boring is beautiful, dull is divine."
She is rewiring her reward system. She uses a fantastic metaphor here, too. Drinking the water, skipping the wine.
I loved that line because obviously there's a literal interpretation there about sobriety.
Sure, choosing clarity over numbing out. But metaphorically, the source material goes much deeper. Think about the difference between water and wine. Wine is an event. It's a complex flavor, it's a buzz, it's a spike in your evening. Water is neutral. It's plain.
But it's the thing that actually keeps you alive.
Exactly. Choosing water is choosing to be fully present, even if the present is just plain toast. It's accepting that a good life isn't a constant highlight reel of intense emotions. Sometimes a good life is just basic hydration.
She keeps playing with this idea of reclaiming the boring things. You know how we use idioms like watching paint dry or watching grass grow as insults? Like if a movie is terrible, we say, oh, it was like watching paint dry.
Right. It implies that the experience is agonizingly slow.
But she flips it completely. She sings, "I'm watching the paint dry, watching the grass, watching the trauma finally pass."
It's a brilliant reframe of a common phrase. Think about the physics of it. To watch paint dry, what do you actually have to do?
You have to just stand there and wait.
You have to be still. If your life has been a high-speed car chase for years, watching paint dry is the ultimate luxury. It implies stability. It implies you are safe enough to be bored. You aren't running for your life. You have the time to witness a very slow process.
That makes boring sound like the biggest flex imaginable.
It really is. In a chaotic world, boredom is a status symbol.
But this brings up a huge identity crisis.
Yeah.
And I think this is where the song hits the hardest for a lot of people. If you stop running and you stop fighting and you're just watching the grass grow, who are you? Because we love our labels. We love being the warrior. We love being the survivor.
We wear those labels like medals of honor.
And the song tackles this head on. She sings, "I'm not a warrior. I'm not a survivor. I'm just a Sunday afternoon driver."
When I read the writer's room notes on this section, it really struck a chord. Ti-Fi acknowledges that warrior and survivor are completely necessary identities. When you are in the crisis, you need that armor. That identity is what keeps you alive.
Right, you can't be soft in a literal war zone.
But the problem arises when the war ends and you don't take the uniform off.
Yeah.
She makes this great point. You can't wear a full suit of armor to the grocery store. You can't wear a suit of armor to bed. It's too heavy. It gets in the way of intimacy. It gets in the way of rest.
It prevents you from actually living the life you fought so hard to save.
Exactly. To truly recover, you have to do something that almost feels like a demotion. You have to step down from the podium. You have to admit, I'm not a warrior anymore. I'm just a person driving a car.
Sunday afternoon driver.
Yeah.
That implies you have no destination. You aren't on a mission. You aren't escaping anything in the rearview mirror. You are just driving.
You are allowed to be average. You are allowed to be soft. And that permission to be just okay is what allows the nervous system to finally exhale.
It's interesting, though, because even as she talks about these big philosophical identity shifts, she keeps grounding it back in strict biology. She explicitly names the chemicals in the lyrics. She says, no adrenaline spike, no cortisol flood.
Which is a very weird thing to put in a pop song.
It is. Cortisol isn't exactly a poetic word.
But she says she did it on purpose to demystify anxiety. We tend to moralize our feelings. We say things like, I'm anxious, so I'm weak, or I'm stressed, so I'm failing. By naming the chemicals, she's saying, this isn't a character flaw, this is a chemical flood. It's hydraulic.
It's just plumbing.
It is just plumbing. And when the flood recedes, she says you are left with the steady pumping of the blood, just the mechanics of being alive.
Okay, so you have got this steady blood, you've got this quiet Sunday. What do you actually do with yourself? According to the song, you do laundry.
Folding the laundry, matching the socks.
Now, I have to stop you here because I personally hate laundry. Laundry is the absolute bane of my existence. It feels like a never-ending chore, not some spiritual breakthrough. How does she bridge that gap?
This is one of the most fascinating nuggets in the source material. She compares folding laundry to EMDR therapy.
EMDR is the trauma therapy with the eye movements, right?
Yes, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It works through something called bilateral stimulation. Basically, you stimulate the left side of the body, then the right, back and forth. This helps the brain process stuck memories and signal safety.
Okay, but how are socks related to trauma therapy?
Think about the physical motion of folding laundry. You pick up a sock with the left hand, you match it with the right, you fold it, you stack it, left, right, fold, stack. It is a rhythmic bilateral movement.
That's physically mimicking the therapy.
Exactly. Ti-Fi argues that it's a rhythmic task that requires just enough focus to keep you grounded in the now, because you do have to match the patterns, but not enough focus to stress you out. It puts the brain in a sort of safety trance.
So the laundry isn't just a chore, it's an anchor.
It's an anchor.
Yeah.
And hearing that might actually change how you feel next time you're staring at a massive basket of clean clothes. It's an opportunity to intentionally regulate your nervous system.
I will definitely try to remember that next time I am drowning in towels. So she's folding the laundry, she's feeling safe, and then she has this lyric, playing with peace like a brand new toy.
That image hurts a little bit, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes peace sound completely foreign.
Because for her, it is foreign. It highlights the sheer novelty of safety. If you have never truly felt safe, peace feels like this strange, fragile new object you've just been handed. You don't know how to use it, you're afraid you might break it, and mostly you're terrified someone is going to come into the room and snatch it away.
You'd have to learn how to trust it.
She calls it a luxury and a wealth. She says, absolute safety in your own mind is the rarest currency. We chase money, we chase status, but the ability to sit in your own home, inside your own head, and feel completely safe. That is true wealth.
As we get towards the end of this deep dive, I want to go back to the water imagery one last time. She talks about making it to the other side where the river is wide.
This is a really great geographic metaphor for the mind. Think about a river, upstream, where it's narrow, the water is violent, it's rushing.
That would be the fight phase.
You're tumbling, you're hitting rocks, you're fighting the undertow just to take a breath. But as the river widens out, the current slows down. The volume of water is exactly the same, but the energy is entirely different. She says, I'm not drowning. I'm floating on my back.
And floating requires trust. You literally have to stop swimming.
You have to surrender to the water.
The
And she pairs that with the image of getting off the train track.
Which feels like the ultimate decision.
If you are on the tracks, you are tied down, just waiting for the worst-case scenario to run you over. Getting off the tracks means stepping out of the path of impending doom. It means you aren't living your life in constant anticipation of the crash.
You are just watching the sun go down, she says, painting the gold on a quiet town.
Which brings us to the very end of the song. And it ends in a really unique way. The music actually fades out, and it's just spoken word.
She speaks the final lines. She says, the shift is over. I think I'll do nothing.
The shift is over. That is the warrior finally taking off the armor.
And she says, yeah, nothing sounds perfect. Absolutely perfect.
In a society that demands, we constantly justify our existence through our output. You know, what did you produce today? What did you achieve? Did you monetize your hobby yet? Choosing to do absolutely nothing is an act of profound self-love.
It really is. It's rebellious.
It requires deep internal security to sit in a room completely alone with your thoughts and not feel the urge to distract yourself, numb yourself, or optimize your time.
It's the ultimate proof that the war is actually over.
Exactly. The goal of recovery isn't to become superhuman. It isn't to become a better, more productive version of yourself. The goal is to become human again, to find joy in the hum of the fridge, to appreciate a beating heart that finally knows it is safe.
That is just really makes you look at your Sunday afternoon nap differently. It's not a waste of time. It's a victory lap.
It might be the most important thing you do all week.
So here is what we want to leave you with today. We talked about shedding that armor, the warrior, the survivor labels. So here is the challenge. If you stripped all of that away, if you took off the warrior badge and you stopped trying to be productive and you were just sitting in a room doing absolutely nothing, who would you be?
And can you find a way to let yourself just float for a few minutes today?
Watch the dust motes. Eat the toast. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.